Okay, call to order the December 18th, 2024. Guess what? This is our last meeting of the year, in case you didn't figure it out. But anyway, call the roll, Bobby.
Rich Daly.
Present.
Marion Edge.
Present.
Tundra King.
Present.
Carrie Ann Worley.
Here.
Carla Coleman.
Here.
Fred Stacer.
Here. Okay. Next item on the agenda is our traditional moment of silence. So if you would, please be silent for the next 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the November 20th, 2024 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or corrections on the minutes? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on that, please.
Rich Daly.
Yes.
Tundra King.
Yes.
Marion Edge.
Yes.
Carrie Ann Worley.
Yes.
Carla Coleman.
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, the individuals testifying tonight, please stand and be sworn in by Bobby, please. Thank you very much.
Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, first item on the new business agenda is item number 1, 200 Park Central Easement Abandonment. Mrs. Barshevsky, you're up.
Good evening, Chair, P&Z members. For the record, my name is Maggie Barshevsky. This request is to abandon a 24-foot wide access easement and on a parcel located on Park Central Boulevard north of Copans Road, west of North Andrews Avenue. This lot was developed without the use of this access easement that was originally included on the plat. The applicant is now redeveloping the property and doesn't want to be encumbered by this easement, access easement. All service provider letters have been submitted, and subsequent to the writing of the staff report, the utility department submitted their no objection comment to the development services department as well. The review standards for an abandonment are: 1, the easement is not now or in the foreseeable future of any benefit to the city or its inhabitants. And number 2 is that it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Staff has determined that the above review standards have been met. Staff provides the following alternative motions for the board to review. Motion number 1 is recommend approval to the City Commission as the board finds that the easement abandonment meets the required standards. Alternative number 2 is to table the abandonment request to allow time for the applicant to address any questions that you may have. Staff recommends alternative motion number 1. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time, or the applicant is here.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of staff before we move to the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Applicant? We have an applicant? Just name and address for the record and whether you would like to speak on this or whether you're just here for questions. It's up to you.
Damon Ricks with Sheffer Moat and Ricks, 888 East Los Olas Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
I'm just here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, we will move from the applicant. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And with that, we'll bring it back to the board. Anybody have any questions? And if not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion here, Chair.
Mr. Daly, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second.
What happened?
Just the applicant, did he agree to the conditions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, you got to put it on the record, sorry.
There's no condition.
There's one condition, isn't it?
No, it's been dropped.
Oh, there is no condition, okay. All right, we're okay then. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dow.
Thank you. In consideration of P&Z application number 2327000007, I move that the board finds competent and substantial evidence has been presented that satisfies the review criteria and recommends approval of the easement abandonment to the city commission.
Second.
I'm sorry?
Plat. Okay. Oh, okay.
It's an easement abandonment. Oh.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and Mrs. King was second. Anybody have any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 1, please.
Rich Daly,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Marianne Edge,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Worley,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Item number 2. Text amendment. Remove residential requirement from portion of 1 block, P&Z 24-81503. And it's at 217 Northeast 3rd Street. Mr. Weems.
Okay, good evening, PNC members, Chair Max Weems, Principal Planner, Development Services. This is a publicly initiated text amendment that we're calling DPOD, residential use required, scratch optional. For some context, the affected area is the downtown Pompano Overlay District, the boundary of which is highlighted on your screen. However, this is specific to one parcel, or one block, actually, this portion of this block. Sorry. For some additional context, the use areas of the downtown Pompano Overlay District designate this property as MUR. What's important to know there is that in the MUR, which is Mixed Use Residential District, residential is optional on the first floor and the second floor. Any development that is multi-story above 2 stories, the 3rd story and above is required to be residential. Commercial is optional on the ground floor and not permitted above the 3rd floor. It's a very flexible use designation. However, there is also, I'm sorry, for context, that red square is highlighting the subject parcels. There's also a density regulating plan, and the density regulating plan can subscribe a minimum density required for a property as well as a maximum density that's required for a property. This block has a designation that is called RR minimum 36, maximum 60. It's in the transit core area, which is this kind of yellow boundary. That area does not prescribe a maximum density for development. The development is really just limited by the building envelope. That's not really subject of this amendment. I'm just clarifying that designation. The RR is residential required. So any new application is required to provide a minimum of 36 dwelling units per acre. That's a little bit counter to the previous designation, the use designation, which provided that it was optional unless you do a multi-story mixed-use development. So the point of this amendment is it's really limited to just that parcel, is to change the designation from RR to OR. And OR is an existing category on the density regulating plan. It exists in other areas within the downtown Pompano Overlay District. However, it enables this portion of this block to develop something up to 2 stories that is strictly commercial. Anything beyond that would be required to include residential. Now, our review standards. This is consistent with our comprehensive plan. This is still the Downtown Pompano Overlay District. This is an existing designation within that Downtown Pompano Overlay District. It does not conflict with any provisions of our code. And is it required by change conditions? It depends on your perspective, really. If you want to say that there's been a lot of residential development, perhaps this is triggering that change in conditions where now we can have commercial development that isn't obligating a residential component. Additionally, this is largely being driven by an application that we've received that is for a pickleball facility. So this private commercial recreation facility is not proposing a residential component. That would require this designation to be altered to one that does not require a residential component. So that is not going to be required to be implemented by this change, but this change would then enable that site plan to proceed. Addresses a demonstrated community need. We have Community Park that is Founders Park that is in close proximity to this location. It provides a very similar amenity. However, it is a very popular amenity and it will be well served by the developing residential surrounding. It is consistent with the purpose and intents of the zoning district and compatible. It would result in a logical and orderly development pattern, and it would not significantly adversely impacts on the natural environment. With that, I'm going to conclude the staff report. The applicant is here to make a full presentation and probably a lot of the same information. So I'll be available for questions and invite the applicant for presentation.
Okay. Is there any questions before we go to the applicant since they're having a full presentation at this point? Okay. All right. Counselor, go ahead.
Good evening, Nectaria Chakas with the firm Lockery & Chakas on behalf of OT Property Group, and I'm joined this evening by Adam Adashi. He is the principal of OT Property Group. You may recognize him because we've been in front of you a few times on some assemblages of properties that he acquired from the church. Just as an update, there were several parcels, including these parcels that are before you this evening, that Adam's group acquired from the church. The church buildings are in the process of being demolished except for the sanctuary, the old sanctuary building that is a historic building, and there are approvals to relocate that. So that building will remain, but demolition permits are in process to go ahead and demolish some of the other buildings which are now vacant because the church has vacated the property. On this particular property, in this particular block, there is one building that's proposed to be reused by the pickleball court operator. And you heard Max indicate that this is an application that is driven by an applicant or a site plan that the city has received for outdoor and indoor recreational pickleball courts. And it is a use that we believe is complementary and compatible because we know that the city has catty corner to this, tennis courts and outdoor facilities that are part of Founders Park. And from what we learned in going through the process on the other blocks when we were getting the mixed-use project approved, we learned that those are very popular tennis courts that are often booked, and so we believe that this pickleball facility is actually going to be very complementary, and I think is probably going to be very popular. As you know, pickleball fever has swept the nation, and so we think that these are going to be very popular. Again, the proposed amendment would allow, this is the existing map, and in clouded in red is the area in question. Again, this is a close-up of that area. Currently, it requires that we have a residential component, and so that is not something that the pickleball operator wants to include in their site plan. What they want to do is do some indoor and some outdoor pickleball courts, and that requires us removing the requirement that we have residential on this property. And this is the proposed map that we're changing. And this is a close-up, and you can see that the lines and the color on the lots in question are changing, and what that delineates is that residential can be developed on the property, commercial can be developed on the property, or you can do a mixed-use project if that's what is desired. But in this case, we're the owner and their buyer, it just proposes to do the pickleball. But that is really the crux of the application. It's simply to allow more flexibility. We're not eliminating the ability to do residential. We're simply removing the requirement that we do residential. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Mrs. Coleman, go ahead.
They're very popular, but they're very loud. Can you talk to me a minute about, can we go back to the aerial so we can talk about the land uses around that and whether there's been any communication with any surrounding landowners or residents?
We have not made any, we have not done any community outreach on this. I don't know if Adam's spoken to anybody in particular, but I don't believe we've done that community outreach.
Can you point on the map other properties that OT Properties owns so we can see what's around it or what might be around it? If the same owner controls other properties around it, I'm going to have less issues with this than if he doesn't.
Yeah. So he controls, and a site plan has been approved for this where my cursor is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the block just south and half of the block south of that. So
Okay?
this, where my cursor is, this entire block, and then this block right here, half of it.
And directly to the east of that block south is Founders Park, correct?
That's correct. So this is Founders Park here.
Okay.
And then the other lots that he controls is to the west, he owns this lot over here, and he also owns this.
Okay.
So he owns, what? Yep, and this apartment building. He developed this apartment building.
Okay.
So those are, he controls a significant amount of the area around there.
And those are single-family homes to the east of the subject property?
So this is a single family home, and there are, I believe these are,
Duplexes.
some of these are multifamily. These are these are duplex, one-story type product. This appeared, when I drove by, appeared to be a single family home. It's homesteaded. So I presumed that was a single family home. Important to note that single family is not allowed in the zoning district anymore, so that's not a use that would be allowed moving forward.
And the school's to the north?
The school is to the north, correct.
Okay.
So in the context of where it is, it's probably a very complementary use to the park, and will be surrounded with some good amount of mixed-use residential to the south, because that's the project that we got approved last year, that this board, some of the members of the board were on this board at the time. Some of you were not, so I apologize if I'm talking about things that predate you. But there is a 319-unit, 10-story building proposed, or actually approved, on the south of the proposed site here, and then the building that was just constructed that Adam also owns is also a 10-story multifamily mixed-use building.
We all love that building. It's a beautiful building. May I ask, Mr. Chair, may I ask
Sure, go ahead.
Attorney a question?
Absolutely.
So no one who is within 500 feet of this property has gotten notice of this text change because it's a text change. But if we have a site plan come back to us, do they get notified? If the development goes forward as a pickleball court, does anybody around them get any notification of what's going up?
Right, site plans are not noticed.
I figured that, but wanted to ask. So,
Can I piggyback on that question real quick? I hear your train of thought. Can you confirm from staff, would the use be permitted by right in the existing zoning district, or would there be any other applications associated with that?
The use is permitted. That's not changing. The configuration that would be required would be like, I don't know, pickleball. It'd have to be on the first 2 stories of a development that contained a minimum of 12 units to the acre.
The use category that the pickleball facility would be in would be some kind of indoor recreation type of use that would be permitted in?
Indoor, outdoor recreation are both permitted.
Okay.
what I'm getting at here is my hesitancy on this is because regionally pickleball courts have been very in some places very controversial because of the noise. I don't disagree that they are wonderful facilities and everybody wants to go to one, but nobody wants to live next to one. So, and I don't have a problem with that if there's a hearing where people are notified that there's going to be a pickleball court next to them when the zoning would not have allowed it before. So I'm a little bit of a quandary here because there's been no discussion with adjacent landowners. I want to support your text amendment, but I'm a little concerned about that aspect of it. So I'm just trying to find a way that we can deal with that.
Good evening. My name is Adam Adashi. I don't know if I have to state my address. It's 2125 East Atlantic Boulevard in Pompano Beach. I think that, I guess, at least from my perspective, I mean, currently right now that the way the zoning reads, it allows us, like Nectaria said, to do a 10-story mixed-use project. It allows us to do the commercial. I think, just to reiterate, it does allow pickleball, so it's not a use that's not allowed. And I guess really important, from our perspective is we're not the applicant for the pickleball. We're the applicant that's basically doing the text amendment, to basically, allow or make residential optional. So from a landowner perspective, and I guess when the applicant does come forward, I don't know exactly what processes he has to go through, but I'm assuming it's going to be a DRC and some other kind of process that they have to go through to submit. I'm sure there'll be questions then. I know I've had conversations with them on many occasions. I know they have special soundproofing on the fencing and everything that they will be using. Although, again, I can't speak exactly to what they're going to be doing. But I can say that, this text amendment, aside from, what the applicant that's under contract with us is doing, is really simply just allowing other uses besides, a 10-story tower or high-dense residential. So that's something that we've looked at on these sites. That's something that we have approved on the sites next door. And we just thought that whether it's pickleball, whether it's another commercial amenity, we thought that, given Old Town Square being 281 units and given the fact that the other side is 319 units, and then we have the empty vacant lot there that, is also zoned for the same thing, and we could probably go up with another tower there in the future. And again, all of these wouldn't happen at once, but they are zoned for it. We feel that with all this density and with all the single family in the neighborhood, that another type of amenity, I personally think pickleball would be a great amenity, but we just think another type of amenity, whether it's pickleball or another commercial use, should be allowed. And at this moment in time, it's not allowed without doing a minimum residential density. So, as the landowner, we're really putting forth this text amendment to encourage, not forcing us to do residential only. And, again, and I just wanted to answer the reason we haven't really gone around to the neighbors is there's really not many neighbors around us. So, there's like one single family home and there's a few duplexes, and again, the pickleball facility or the operator, and again, I can't speak for them and I can't guarantee it, but I'm told that they have some pretty, heavy duty soundproofing on aspects of the fencing that are designed specifically for pickleball courts. But, if you look at all of it's very, very limited, other than the tall stuff that we're doing, so.
Well, Mr. Adachi, I guess it comes down to, do you want to be living next to a 10-story building or do you want to be living next to a tennis court? And since you own most of the property around there, that's something that you'll have to sell.
If you're asking my opinion, I think if I was in the single-family home on that parcel and I was looking up at a 10-story building, I wouldn't be too happy. I think I'd prefer the amenity beside me, but that's just an opinion, so.
Well, I get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go right now. I'll let somebody else talk in just a second, but I wanted something very relevant to this particular issue. The properties to the east, obviously, they're zoned for a much higher density, and over time, obviously, I think most of us would believe that, assuming that there's a success in downtown, that they're going to move to a higher density. In fact, the property that you're here, if your other two projects are successful, I can't imagine you aren't eventually going to build a high-rise there, because it's worth, the land value is just not going to support, I mean, it might support it as an interim use and stuff like that. But I also think that when you look at the way that block is configured to the east of your property, if you look to the south, the properties that are, excuse me, to the east and the ones that are on the south side of 3rd Street, they face onto tennis courts today. So, and if you take the ones that face on the north side, or excuse me, the south side of 4th Street looking north, they're looking at the middle school. And no offense, I think we've all been around middle school kids. I live a block east, 2 blocks east of that, and they are an exciting bunch when they're going home, I can tell you. And so was I. I was probably worse than they were, but regardless of that, the point is there's a lot of activity. I think there's a lot of activity that is not, that is at least as, I don't know if it's the right word, noxious, let's say noxious, as that would be. So, and I understand Mrs. Coleman's concern is, the Fort Lauderdale had just a little hoopla about Snyder Park, but, the people seem to get all upset.
That was about using public land.
No, I understand. Well, there was a lot of arguments made there, but yeah, that's not the least of which. And I was like truly amazed, because I was trying to figure out if you could hear the pickleball over the jet engines, but maybe other people can. I don't know. I'm always amazed at what people, and I'm not saying in this instance, but I'm saying if you're next to a jet runway, it's hard to believe you're going to be worried about pickleball noise. But anyway. I believe, yes, Mrs. Worley, you go ahead.
Obviously pickleball is extremely popular, and if you go over where is it, across from Federal, you see all the cars and the people, and it's a lot of excitement. I think it brings, a good excitement to the area. I guess my point was, I think we're just trying to change the code. It's not necessarily agreeing, when when your applicant comes forward, there's going to be a plan, and in that plan, that's when maybe we decide, and maybe, I don't know.
Is that going to be a major site plan?
I don't.
It will? No, I'm sorry, I was looking past you, Counselor. I was looking past you.
Right.
Sorry.
But I guess my point is we will be able to.
Will it be hold on a second. Will it be a major site plan? Or do you know?
I can't recall if we've classified it as major or minor.
Oh, okay.
It's based on the square feet of the building. It may be.
It may be minor?
Minor site plan,
Okay.
but I mean.
Okay, I just wanted for clarification. Go ahead, Mrs. Worley, I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to get clarification, actually. So,
If it's a minor site plan, it wouldn't come back to us.
it wouldn't.
That was
Okay.
my point.
Okay, so that's.
That's why I asked the question.
we
It was
do-
directly related to what you
We
were asking.
review for generally the same criteria as this board. So if you have any particular concerns, now would be a good time to hear them.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, Mr. Dally, go ahead.
Thank you. Question for staff here. Let's just say we do approve this text amendment today, and the project that Mr. Dashi is currently working on happens to fall through. And could it be replaced with a different commercial project that wouldn't necessarily be pickleball courts, and it could be something completely different?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Is there an option to put a condition on the approval tonight for this, to only allow for the pickleball court? Because I'd be concerned that there, no, okay.
Yeah, no. I think pickleball is exciting, so that's perhaps why we're focused on it, but nothing about this change is limiting the use of that activity to a specific application. We've only received that application and conducted one development review committee meeting for it. So it's not even through our internal code compliance review, but this change is really just to remove a residential requirement, and any commercial development is going to, solely commercial development would be limited to 2 stories. Anything beyond that would have to be mixed use or residential.
And that's, just to make a clarification, that's also true of the properties that are on the south side that have this exact same zoning?
They have the same use area.
Or, okay, I'm sorry, I'm using, not zoning, I'm sorry, you're right. They have the same,
The property to the south has a required density.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about all the way down on Atlantic Boulevard. Does that south perimeter has this particular category?
Yes, yeah,
So-
because it supports.
So it's not like we're creating a category for this property, okay? It just happens to be on the opposite side of the DPOD, so. I just want to make that, I don't know if you understood that or not, but I'm just making it clear that it's there. And we're just not making, something special for this necessarily.
Yeah, it is an existing category within the district.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that I think this discussion's been a good one, and it's resolved the issues that I had with the project. I just wanted to make sure that we discussed the land uses that were around it, and to give some comfort that this wasn't being plopped down in a single-family home area, and that we weren't going to have a situation that came back to us and said, well, we never got a chance to talk about this.
Sure, and that's a very good point, that zoning, to the east, even though today it's like duplexes and one single-family home, I believe they said, but that's not obviously our long-term goal for that type of stuff, for the whole block going all the way to where it is predominantly single-family, so. And that actually occurs on the same corridor line as the stuff east of Founders Park as well. So it seems to me it's relatively logical, but I'm sorry. Did anybody else?
I was just going to say that,
Okay.
thank you for clarifying, because it definitely clarified what I was questioning, what kind of the purposes and moving forward. So
Sure. Yes, Mrs. Edge, go ahead.
Sure, I'll address this to staff, although anyone can answer, I suppose. Talked about the density and the overall future vision for this area. With it being the intention of this downtown, higher density, transit-oriented, has staff discussed any concerns or expressed any concerns, or do you see any issues with removing this requirement for residential? I know we talked about there has already been some residential development applications recently, but this removing of the residential requirement, it already allows for commercial on the first 2 floors regardless. Removing the residential requirement would allow them to go from a mixed use with commercial to just commercial. That creates the possibility of a less dense, less active use, perhaps, depending on how you look at it. And especially with the potential pickleball, perhaps some people might see that as a less transit-oriented use. I don't know if it is or not, but there's still the option of commercial regardless. But I'm curious if there's that concern about having less residential in this particular lot. We've said that there's, other residential in the area, but I'm curious if that's been discussed at all.
Not specifically. I don't think that actually is a concern. Obviously, this district was established to promote placemaking, bringing people to the area, but also active uses. And I think that this kind of commercial recreation supports a density of people. Our vision of mixed use is not just horizontal, but also vertical. And this, it's almost one block. This almost one block really, so the ability to develop additional residential exists in abundance, and while it might not exist on this, still exists, but while it may not happen on this block, the ability to happen on other blocks is well established. And also perhaps more likely by the introduction of this commercial recreation use that may not have existed without that infusion of density that we've already received.
I appreciate that thorough response. I don't know if the applicant wants to add anything, but that answers my question. Thank you.
I think that actually is really true. And I can also see this no offense to your, to your potential person doing this, but I could see it, down the line as an interim type of thing, and maybe there'd be indoor pickleball or something if you had a tower over it, but you might be 10 years before we absorb those things, because you're sitting on a lot of units that you have rights to today. I mean, and so I could see it. I think to me, it's a really good, it's an unoffensive but really good interim situation. And if it always stays pickleball, don't be offended if you're a pickleball player. I didn't mean it like it's not going to be there forever, but I could see it very well, supported by the fact that we do have a lot of units in play right now, and one of which is his bigger development than he has, which is, and a very exciting one at that, when the time comes right and stuff. So, anybody else have any other questions? Did I ask anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any other questions before we? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion then on item number 2, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Coleman, please.
since I generated most of the questions, I'm going to make the motion.
Okay, you do that.
In consideration of planning and zoning application number 2X815003, I move that the board recommends approval of the text amendment to the city commission for their consideration.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 2, please.
Who seconded that?
Mary Ann. Carrie Ann. I got a Mary Ann, Carrie Ann, whatever. I don't even know my wife's name half the time, whatever. I'm in trouble doing that. Sorry.
Carly Coleman,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Worley,
Yes.
Rich Daly,
Yes.
Mary Ann Edge,
Yes.
Andrew King,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thank you. Happy
with your
holidays to
stuff,
everybody.
folks. Okay. All right, item number 3. We have a major site plan, 23-1240 is 23, and it just says it's West McNabb Road. Saul, you're up, sir.
Good evening. Let me adjust the microphone. Good evening, Chair and board members. I am Saul Umana with Development Services. Today, I will be discussing 2 warehouse projects, which both happen to be on McNabb Road, and they're both warehouses. The first one on the agenda is the Pompano Warehouse Project, located between Powerline Road and North Andrews Avenues. This is along our southern border into Fort Lauderdale. There's also, it's along the existing road of industrial buildings that you might be familiar with. Here's the location for context. Like I said, it's between North Andrews and Powerline along our southern border with Fort Lauderdale. I'm going to talk about, I will keep this presentation a little bit brief. I know I saw the presentation from the applicant, and it's a very visual presentation, so you will enjoy it. I will talk about the conditions on the staff report. For a little context, the current site is currently vacant, and it does have a proposed shared access easement with the adjoining property. As you can see in the middle, you can see the other warehouse with all the buildings in the road. They are doing a shared access easement agreement, and this was shown on the plat. The plat came in front of you, some of you, about 2 years ago, and so it's already been approved by this board for the plat. Along the rear, where you see the trees and the canal, that is across from Cypress Bend community. One of the conditions in my staff report talks about the maintenance of the trees that you see in the rear. That is because there is an existing easement that was asked from other applicants to maintain that easement. So our condition is we want to see how it currently is, if it has enough trees, if it has followed that easement plan from several decades ago, and if it is not compliant, then we will ask our urban forestry team to ensure that they comply with their requirements. And this is already on top of their type C 25-foot buffer inside of their property to further screen from Cypress Bend community. So we as staff don't have any concerns about any potential views from Cypress Bend. My other condition was that I asked the applicant to correct the data. I just want to put on the record that everything is compliant. It's just that during the process, a lot of things shifted, and sometimes the numbers didn't quite, weren't reflective of the changes, but nothing is non-compliant. Everything is good. It's just a couple hundred off, so it makes the percentages not accurate, but I just want you to, everything on the site plan is accurate. It's just because of the requirements of fire to have a proper circulation made the buildings a little shorter, and we had to add some landscaping islands, which increased the pervious area. So nothing major, just we want to keep things accurate as possible when it comes to building permitting. And this will be for, it's 2 buildings. It's broken apart into A and B. The A has direct loading from the parking spaces. It will have warehouse storage and distribution, and B will have storage and office spaces. All the parking is sufficient. It meets all code standards. And I would like to let you know that they went and got approved by the AAC early this month, and they received no notes and no conditions. It was a unanimous approval from the AAC. These are other conditions that I laid out. I talked about the first 4. Number 5 is standard. So if you have any questions, staff is here, and the applicant also has a presentation of their own.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of staff before we move to the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Applicant's going to make a presentation. Come on up, name and address, and tell us what you're thinking.
We're trying to find it now. Well, good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. For the record, my name is Joseph Kaler, Kaler Architecture. Our offices are located at 2417 Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood, Florida. Anyway, thank you for allowing us to present tonight. What's really interesting about this project is the clients came to us. They're 2 brothers. They developed through not only in Pompano but in other cities in the southeast Florida. And they wanted to do a warehouse development. So we're here today for a major building design approval, basically to have 2 one-story buildings. On the screen, you have Building A, which is the larger building. It has 5 bays. It's got about 18,000, a little under 18,000 square feet. And then the little building at the bottom left, which is below the circular turnaround, has about 3,500 square feet. The bigger building is taller. The smaller building is a bit shorter. It is true that the bigger building is not only having warehouse, storage, and distribution activities with loading zones, while the smaller building, Building B, is only for warehouse and office space. Basically, we will have an access agreement with the adjacent property to the east to allow us both to go in and out comfortably. You might ask, what is that circular form? Well, originally we had our T-turn for the fire marshal. He preferred something a little bit easier. So we came up out of our lemons, we made lemonade, and we made this circular form, which allowed the truck to come around. And then that allowed us to get the additional parking in that rounded form, as well as our dumpster. So we did, about a couple of weeks ago, we did as much as we could to create as much softness. To the building by creating a lot of landscaping. Over 20% of the landscaping is native, and that's what's reflected in this. To the building by creating a lot of landscaping. Over 20% of the landscaping is native, and that's what's reflected in this landscape plan. This is it, so you can see the pop of where the green is going to occur along the perimeter of the site. We did show the 12 points of what we're proposing as far as for sustainable development. And we opted for, hot water on the premises, a building constructed to meet over 150 mile per hour winds, and so forth. We wanted to have something a little bit different, a little punchy. We added that it's not an orange color, it's called sunset, but that occurs at the corner. We wanted to create an emphasis to the corner of the building. There's a lot of articulation in the facade, a lot of ins and outs, a lot of texturing, which I will reflect now on in the renderings that are coming up soon. This happens to be the smaller elevations of Building B, which is the smaller building that has approximately 3,500 square feet. This is a sample board. On the left is basically the glazing color. Then you have 4 squares and centered to the left, which are the colors that are being proposed for the building. And then, of course, showing all of the powder coating of all the metal and the dumpster enclosures. This happens to be an aerial view of the southeast corner of the warehouse. As part of the requirements, I know the staff had wanted us to not see any of the air conditioning, which will occur along the top of the roof as rooftop package units. But they were more concerned about especially the bay that's closest to West McNabb. They didn't want us to see the air conditioning units. So as you notice, we have a taller parapet that occurs. It's in the gray color that will hide the air conditioning for that first bay. You could see this is the same view, southeast view, but it's more from a pedestrian point of view. It's a little lower, the perspective. And last but not least, I don't know what happened. Oh, here it is the actual facade of what you're going to see from West McNabb. There's a lot of, it's soft, but yet it's crisp and it's clean and it's got scoring and it's got color and it's got articulation. We wanted to really make sure that someone that is driving up McNabb is going to say, wow, is this really a warehouse or is it a combination of a warehouse with office? Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And any questions, I'll be here to answer them. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask one quick one.
Sure.
The 5 conditions of staff, do you have it?
I have no
fine.
problem with them.
Okay. Go ahead. Who would like to go? Mrs. Coleman, go ahead.
Single tenant, multi-tenant?
I think it's going to be, right now, they don't know. It's a very good question. I think it's going to be multi-tenant, to be honest with you.
So it's a spec building?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Edge, go ahead.
Look, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at this site plan and you've shown a sketch floor plan of potential breakdown of tenant spaces, obviously not commitment at this point. But it does show a potential at this point, 8 tenant spaces, so give or take that is a possibility. Nevertheless, the parking requirements are based on total square footage, a mix of office warehouse.
Correct.
Looking at the site plan, maybe staff wants to jump in, I'm seeing 17 spaces required, 16 provided?
Yeah, that was one of the possibly the faux pas because we were asked to add some more landscaping. We did relocate that parking space where the landscaping was asked to be added, and we added that in that circular, and we have 17 required, 17 has been provided. No variances are needed. Am I correct, Saul?
They're actually providing a little bit more than the required because we don't consider office space as a separate use when it's part of the
Warehouse
overall
business?
warehouse project. So the requirements would be a lot less parking required. So they are providing a little bit more. They
Again-
just broke up the uses individually, which is not bad. We want parking in here.
Again, knowing this is just a tentative breakdown of how the building might be configured, tenant forthcoming. Nevertheless, I am seeing with this potential breakdown, if it is this many small bays, that's roughly 2 parking spaces per bay. I know that the uses are kind of, the ratios are set. That is a concern with the limited amount of parking with a high number of users as a potential for the site. I know that's not a fault necessarily of the design. The requirement is shown and is shown met. I'm curious to hear if that was addressed at all. So you've addressed the discrepancy at least, so thank you for that.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none. Okay, so does anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Chair will bring it back, and if there are no other questions, Chair will entertain a motion on item number 3.
Make a motion.
Yes, Mrs. King, King, excuse me.
In consideration for L and 60, I move the board finds that competent and substantial evidence has been presented that satisfies the review criteria and approves the major site plan with following 5 conditions stated by staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 3, please.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Rich Daly,
Yes.
Marion Edge,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Worley,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have
Next.
a wonderful holiday season and a happy and a healthy new year. Okay, to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Item number 4, 3081 McNabb Warehouse, PNC 24-124016, 3081 West McNabb Road. And this is you as well, Saul. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We'll fix that later. Thank you. Here to discuss the second warehouse project, also located on McNabb Road, 3180 West McNabb Road, which is located on 3180 West McNabb Road. This is the location. For context, this is actually south of where the other one was, west of Power Line Road, between north of Northwest 36. This is a little unique one because it's already an existing building. They're not proposing to demolish this one. This is just an addition to this already existing warehouse use. Where you see the parking on the right side of the existing proposal is where the addition will go. So they are removing all those parking spaces and adding this new addition. However, the parking spaces for the overall warehouse is still going to be met. The requirements for warehouses is very low. All the loading will take place in the rear, so none of the trucks will be backing out onto West McNabb Road, which is a plus. And the applicants have also proposed to make the existing facade more modernized and blend it into the new design, just because the older building is a little outdated, so they will modernize that as part of the approval. They did go to the AAC, they received approval. Only one condition, which was related to hurricane impact windows, nothing related to the site plan. One of the conditions that I had on the staff report was that they needed to amend an FPL easement. In the front yard, there is an FPL easement that is going to be shortened, so that would have to come back and get amended or vacated prior to building permit approval. And this is for the same use as a warehouse, storage, and distribution. It will be 23 feet in height. All the I-1 general industrial zoning code standards are being met. And like I said, it received AAC approval earlier this month. I only had one condition. The second one was a standard condition of approval. Staff, the applicant is also here.
Questions of staff before we go to the applicant? No? Okay. Applicant? Name and address for the record and tell us your gig.
Good evening. Ricardo Rodriguez, architect, H&M Architecture. Location address is 143 South Swinton Avenue, Delray Beach. So to add on to Sal's presentation, I'll keep it short. So as Sal mentioned, this is So to add on to Sal's presentation, the blue hatch is that warehouse addition we're proposing. This is the floor plan. Warehouse warehouse use, it will be just for boat accessories, for storage and distribution. This is the south elevation, which is facing the McNabb row. And so, like Saul mentioned, we're trying to keep it motorized, try to upbring the design of the existing structure with some roof variations and some wall offsets and material change throughout the facade. North elevation, portion to the right is the existing structure. We are just proposing to also do 2 additional openings for the overhead doors. And on the left side, you can see the proposed warehouse addition. East elevation, again, we tried to break the continuous facade. We're having roof variations and material change. You see the grade of the accent walls will be with a smooth stucco material. West elevation to the right, you also see the existing structure, which we also try to upbring the facade and articulate the roof to have also the material change to be cohesive with the new warehouse addition. I think that's the last one. To complete the presentation, I just want to show some renderings so you can take a look at how the building will look. So that's a perspective rendering facing the corner of McNabb Road. And you can see also we incorporated also a metal canopy to the entrance and the accent walls and material change. So I'll complete our presentation. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, was that the presentation? You're done, okay. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Mrs. Coleman, you go first.
You got enough landscaping in there to meet code?
Yes, we're preserving the existing landscape buffers and also adding soft vegetation and also hard vegetation. So, right, all the fronts remaining and also the surroundings are remaining as well.
Is this an existing business that is expanding, or is this spec space?
It's an existing building expanding.
Okay. I mean, it's an existing business, not just the building.
It's an existing business, yeah.
It's got rack storage.
Correct, it's a
Yeah.
storage in the business.
So they put more racks over in the east part
Right,
wing,
okay.
which kind of told me it was not spec.
Yeah.
They got a specific use.
Well, I had a little trouble reading the
Yeah,
drawings.
understand. Okay. Mrs. Ed, did you have a?
Yeah, sure. I have the same question about whether it's an existing business or not. From just aerial images over time, it doesn't appear that it's highly parked. You don't have a whole lot of employees, customers, or anything like that coming to the site at any given time. The reason I'm asking, of course, is you're losing quite a bit of parking and expanding the building. If it's an existing business, just to confirm how that might affect operations. It seems like you've got more than enough parking, but if you could just speak to that aspect.
Yeah, the owner does have more parking than he has shown in the original site. Employee-wise, he doesn't have that many. Just a couple of people operating the whole business. So that's why he's probably seeing empty vacant lot right now.
Yeah, it seems almost vacant, given that sea of parking unused. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Did I already do that? Public? Okay. Anybody in the public want to speak about this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any other questions from us? And if not, the chair will entertain a motion on, staff? Yes, you did. Okay. Go ahead. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make it.
Mrs. King, go ahead.
In consideration of application LN 663, I move the board finds that competent substantial evidence has been presented that satisfies the review criteria and approves a major site plan for the two conditions noted by staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 4, please.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Worley,
Yes.
Rich Daly, Marian Edge,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, thank you very much. Good luck with your
Thank you.
project. Okay. That gets us to item number 5. Text amendment overlay districts allowing townhouses with internal circulation. Mr. Weems, you're back up.
Good evening, Max Weems, Principal Planner Development Services. That was the title, allow townhouses with access from internal circulation. So this amendment is limited to the transit-oriented zoning district. Transit-oriented is a base zoning district that is prescribed to an area that is going to receive an overlay. So both the downtown Pompano overlay district and the east overlay district are overlays on a transit-oriented base district. So there's lots of standards in there that are general to these transit-oriented districts, and then the overlays are those districts that include the specific regulations to the plans for those districts. So this is a context map. I realize my boundaries are not very clear, so I'll just highlight the area, but I think we're generally familiar at this point that this is the downtown Pompano overlay district, and this here, kind of going north on Federal to the Intercoastal, south on Federal, and then back over to Fifth here, is the East Overlay District. I've also put 4 stars on that map, as those are locations that I'm going to reference in the presentation. So this is the one of the building typologies in the transit-oriented zoning district for townhomes. What this is showing is a unit that is fronting on a street and has vehicular access from the rear. This is the required configuration for townhomes in the transit-oriented zoning district. Now, that rear access is usually going to require that you have an assemblage on a corner or a full block. Otherwise, there's no way to access the rear of the site to get that access. So it's very specific lot configurations where you can apply a townhouse development typology. A lot of the applications that we receive, however, provide those units along the frontage, but a lot of our lots are deeper than they are wide. So then the area behind the lot is kind of left undevelopable. Obviously, they want to get as many units as possible, but with townhouse, it's really not that many units that we're talking about. And what's shown here, just to explain it a little bit, this would be the front along the street, and here's a driveway that goes into the property like this and provides access to 3 additional units that are at the rear of the property. I think this is a very typical townhouse configuration, whether it's accessed from the front or from the side. To show, here are some existing conditions in the East Overlay District. This development is called East Atlantic, where this is a drive aisle, and this is the front along Atlantic, which is a townhouse building. And back here, there's another like 50 townhouse units that you don't even see from the street. So it's a very private community. It's lovely. The I think it's a fair argument that this rear portion isn't activating the street. This portion could be designed more compliant with our TO district design standards today to activate the street more. However, a multifamily development that's multi-story or that has units that face the back, those are activating the street just as much as units in a townhouse development are at the rear of a development. This is also a very lovely development on Northeast First Street behind the Founders Foundry. And what is the one on the water? Houston's, thank you.
Yes.
And Houston's. And you wouldn't really know it from the street, but there's a whole another line of building, another building behind it that has that kind of faces the water. And so this is an aerial view of that same development where all of these rear units are accessed from internal circulation, as I'm calling it. In the downtown overlay district, we have these two examples where this development has this center drive that comes out on Northeast First Street to, kind of from this configuration where it's two mirroring buildings where they have garages that face each other and rear yards on either of the street side and the interior side property lines. We also have this development that's on Northeast 4th Street. Very similar configuration, a driveway going through where they have driveways facing that internal access and then rear or front yards if it's on 4th Street or in the interior property line. Granted, those developments were not built with the design standards of the TO district that requires that those frontages actually face that street and have access from that street. They are the layout that I'm describing. So I don't want to get caught up on this design or this lack of access, in both of these instances. That would be improved by the TO-based district. What I'm focused more on is the configuration or the layout of the development. So the amendment that I'm proposing is pretty simple. Right now, all units are required to have their primary entrance that gets access from a public right-of-way, greenway, or an open space. I want to clarify that statement to say that townhouse development units that abut a public right-of-way, greenway, or an open space must provide direct access for those units. However, internal units may be configured to obtain access from internal site circulation. Townhouse development shall be designed in a way that as many units as possible front onto public or publicly accessible spaces. In this way, you have nearly the same development that you would have otherwise, except the rear of that site is not left undevelopable. In reality, nobody would do that. We wouldn't end up in a situation where somebody would do half of the development that they would otherwise be permitted to do. What they would do is a multi-story, multi-family development instead. So, no one is going to lose out on units that they're able to fit on a property. In this way, we are enabling more townhouse development. I think it's a very popular unit type right now. And I don't know, it's a scale of development that I really like, and that I think this configuration is common. It's tested throughout the city, and there's clearly a desire for it. So it is consistent with our comprehensive plan. We have this type of townhouse development all throughout the city. Doesn't conflict with our ordinances. Required by change conditions. I would say that when we created the TO districts, we had a clear vision to create active streets and activate the streets, and it was all eyes on the streets, mixed use, everything like this. A townhouse development is never going to be mixed use. It's nice to have in a mixed use area, and as I said, we are still getting the benefit of eyes on the street, while also getting the benefit of the additional units that may occur from the internal circulation. Addresses a demonstrated community need. I mean, we get more units, there's a housing shortage. I don't know if that works. It's consistent with the intents of our district, would not result in logical or orderly would result in a logical and orderly development pattern, and would not result in significantly adverse impacts on the natural environment. This concludes my presentation. I'll leave these motions for your consideration. I'm available for questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for staff? Anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Seeing none, close the public hearing. I'll just make a couple of comments. Early on, when we were doing the East Overlay District, before staff kind of told me I needed to stop coming and seeing them with my comments. One of the things that I had always felt we needed to leave a place in this market for townhouse development, and I'm glad to see that we're trying to accommodate that particular situation. It leaves another opportunity for potential fee simple ownership in a more dense environment, and I think that's a very positive thing. And of course, probably the fact that I built like 10 townhouse developments in Victoria Park in the late 80s and early 90s might have a little prejudice towards this type of project, but I do think that adding this mix to our overlay districts would be a very positive thing. So, and with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, I just want to add for the record that I did present this item to the CRA as well as to the EDC, and I obtained no objections.
That's good, because they told me they didn't want to block off sidewalks before. But that's okay. That's when I said it. So, just kidding. Just kidding. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mrs. Coleman.
I move that the board recommends approval of the text amendment to the city commission for their consideration.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Bobby, call the roll on item number 5, please.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Rich Daly,
Yes.
Marianne Edge,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Worley,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right. Next item on our agenda is audience to be heard. Does anybody want to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to reports by staff.
Nope.
No reports?
Nope.
Man, is
Number one.
everybody want to go home for Christmas?
Chair and vice chair nominations.
I know we're next. I know that's next. Okay.
That's in
Oh,
front.
I went out of order. I'm sorry. I jumped right over that. Boy, you can tell I was trying to avoid that, huh? Okay.
Oh, Mr.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Item number 1 of other business. I'm sorry, Chair. So the first is the chair. So the chair will entertain a motion, I guess, for
Mr. Chairman.
nominations. Yes, Mrs. Coleman, please.
Nominate Fred Stacer for another term as chair of this board.
Second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Nominations closed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Besides me? No, just kidding. Okay. Next item, vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Tundra King for vice chair.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Carla.
Second.
Okay.
I'm just stirring the pot.
Okay. So is there a third nomination? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the nominations. And so I don't even know how we do this. We've never voted before.
I'll withdraw my nomination.
Oh, okay. I think she said something about an unsecond. Was there any such thing as an unsecond? Yeah. You want this button? Practice with that. Huh? Okay. So that one was withdrawn. So we have Carla Coleman. So do we? Huh? No, he just withdrew her.
I withdrew my nomination.
Do you need to second the vice? No. Okay, then you're good.
Okay. Well, she seconded it anyway. I was moving down because he looked mad. No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, Tundra, you don't want to
Okay.
do this when he's gone?
Yeah.
Oh,
If you need a second, if Tundra's nominated Ms.
Okay.
Carla Coleman, and
Okay,
I'd happily second if you need to.
No, I think we're fine. So do we need to, is it,
Just say aye.
okay, all in favor of Carla Coleman? Say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. And this year, I'm going to be out a lot more. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right, we already had staff reports, board discussion. Mr. Dowie, do you have anything for us?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Worrell?
Just happy holidays, enjoy.
Okay,
See you in 2025.
all right. Mrs. Coleman?
Happy holidays to all, and thank you. I look forward to another year of congenial board meetings. I think this is one of the best boards I've ever served on in 50 years. And it's due to, I think, all of you who really prep for these meetings and take it seriously, and a chairman who knows what he's doing. So it's something I actually look forward to every month. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mrs. King?
I don't have anything. I just want to say happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. Mrs. Edge?
And same for me. I've been thrilled to be here. Happy holidays to everybody. And to staff, thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you. Okay, I just had a couple of quick things. So I noticed that it looks like we're going to set, for the 5th year in a row, we're going to set another construction volume record. Congratulations to staff that are working so hard to make that happen. And I think this year is going to potentially be an interesting year in terms of, we may have some things that come up that haven't come up in a long time. And I'm thinking specifically about a major asset of this city, which is the air park. I think there's going to be several issues coming up on the air park this year. So along with, obviously, all the other and sundry things that we have. And I think moving ahead, looking ahead, and working hard together, that we can continue to make Pompano a great place and a better place every year. So that's kind of my end of the year thing. And thanks to everybody. And have a wonderful holiday. And be safe. Enjoy your family and whatever. So, and with that, there we go.